It wasn't too long ago when I was applying. I did a biochemistry degree before, and then I did a year out, and now I'm here. So it wasn't too long ago when last February in 2020. So I know how you're feeling, and I know it can be a stressful time, but try not to let it stress you out. So this is an overview of the meeting. So first of all, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what is Warwick WHAM and how we can help you with your application. Then I'm going to talk about what actually is graduate entry medicine, and then how to strengthen your application to graduate entry medicine. And then I'll speak specifically about Warwick, as we are a bit biased. And then we're going to hear from some current first year medical students, like Abby said, and they can give you any tips. And then we'll do a Q&A. Okay. So I think you are just rejoin. You'll be able to. Sorry, someone in the chat has just said that they can't see the presentation. Abby, can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. You've just muted.
Yes, I can see it. And we'll be letting people in throughout.
Yeah.
So don't worry about that. And then the other question about where the recording will be posted. We are just in the process of launching a YouTube channel where we can put all our recordings there so that you can access them at any time. And I will put that in the email when I send the feedback format for you all, so you know where to go.
Okay, Brill. So yeah, just rejoin. If you've got a question throughout, so Abby said there's a Google Forms. You can either say the question out loud, or you can pop it in the chat. Or if you don't feel comfortable with that and you want to be an anonymous or whatever, you can, if you scan this QR code, it will take you to the Google Forms link, and you can just put the question on whenever you want throughout the meeting, and we'll come to it at the end. Career. So when you get into medicine, we won't just leave you. We'll still help you out. Background, minority background, and sexual orientation. But yeah, we understand that it's difficult to put yourself in a list sometimes. So this isn't a definitive list of all the categories. But if we ever are oversubscribed, this is a bit of a long list, but we do follow some eligibility criteria. So you can see all these factors. But if you're ever thinking, oh, I think I should be classed, just give us an email and we can help you out. So what is graduate entry medicine? So it's a 4-year undergraduate used to have, when I applied, it used to have a A-level requirement, but I had a look on the website and I couldn't see it anymore. So it might just be worth checking if you're thinking about applying for Southampton, that they definitely haven't got that A-level requirement anymore. But yeah, so if you've never done medicine or any science in your life, you can still be a med student and you can still go on to be a doctor. So don't worry about that either. Some universities have really require like specific types of life sciences degrees. So I know Sheffield, I think they want a degree with a certain amount of anatomy, and so I did biochemistry. I couldn't apply to Sheffield. So you need to make sure you're having a look at all the different universities and have a look at their entry requirements in detail. Some universities do look at A-levels, so that's something to bear in mind. But if you've got your degree already, you're sorted. But just it's important to have a look where you can actually apply with your degree. So number 2, admissions test, and I would say this is probably the most important one to focus on. So it's the first thing that most universities use to cut down the number of applications. So I was saying about it's competitive. In last September, 2,021 people applied for Warwick. So it's loads. So they need to find a way to just cut the numbers down, and they usually do it by ranking your admissions test score, and anyone below a certain cutoff just can't go through to get an interview. So it's really important to focus on your admissions test. So even if you've got brilliant experience, you're a nurse, or you've got a first class degree and really good work experience, if you've got a low score for your admissions test, you won't be able to get an interview. So you won't even be able to show them that you've got all this quality, all the good stuff that you've done. So it's really important to focus on the admissions test. And so one of them is a Ucat, and Warwick require the Ucat. Quite a few of them require the Ucat, and I'll show you in a minute which ones. But a good Ucat score for undergraduate, the 5-year course, medicine course, that might just be an average Ucat score for graduate entry, and you might not actually get an interview with that. So it's really important to focus on it. And I know a lot of people who I've met who are on my course now, it sometimes takes them a couple of times to get in, because the first time they didn't really take the admissions test seriously, or they didn't revise enough, and they couldn't get the interview. But when they got the interview, they got in. So it's really important to make sure you focus on the admissions test, leave yourself enough time. You don't want to rush it last minute, because once you've got that admissions test score, you can only do it in that one cycle. So if you get a bad score, you're going to have to wait till next year. But it might be worth doing more than one admissions test. So you can do the GAMSAT and the Ucat if you wanted to. So if one of them doesn't go great, you can fall back on the other one. So you just want to plan how you're going to work. So these are all the universities that require the Ucat. And I've sort of separated the top ones accept 9 science degrees, and the bottom 3 don't. And you can see Warwick is a really big course. So when I said about the cut-offs about when, so these are some of the minimum scores. Some of them are a bit old, but these are the most recent ones I was able to find. So this is the minimum score that the students have, so applicants have been able to get an interview with. So they might not have got in, but this is the minimum for an interview. So the thing is with Newcastle, it's so high, and the Ucat is really, I found it hard. A lot of people find it tricky, and it's hard to prepare for. So say if you don't do well in your Ucat, you don't want to apply for Newcastle, because it will just be a wasted choice, because you get 4 choices. So you don't want to apply for Newcastle if your Ucat's around 2,600, because it is just a waste. And it might be worth, say if it's not great, your Ucat's not brilliant, then it might be worth using one of them choices for an undergrad course, even if you have no intention of going on it, because you can because they have a lower Ucat requirement, you can get that interview practice, which will prepare you for the next year when you apply for graduate again. So these Ucat cut-offs, they differ every year, but they follow the same trend. Newcastle tends to be really high, and it's hard to get an interview based on Ucat. Warwick's is a bigger course, so there's 193 places. So we tend to have a lower Ucat requirement. So if you've done sort of middle of the ground, then you might stand a chance with Warwick. And when I say middle of the ground, you still have to do pretty well, but it's quite low in terms of grad entry terms. And then Birmingham, they do like a point system based on the decile that you get in the Ucat. So, but Birmingham do a whole point systems for your degree and Ucat and work experience. But so go on the Birmingham website if you're interested in Birmingham, because they do it a little bit differently. So GAMSAT, these are the GAMSAT unis. So there's 6 of them there. Cardiff is feeder school only, so you need to do a specific course already to get into Cardiff. But the other ones, you don't have that requirement. The GAMSAT I didn't do the GAMSAT myself, but I know it takes, I think some people take a few months to prepare for it. So if you're thinking about doing the GAMSAT, then give yourself enough time. And it's the same with the Ucat as well. in the sense where they sort of rank on the scores, and if yours isn't high enough, you won't be able to get that interview. So make sure you're applying cleverly. If you've got a sort of low GAMSAT, there's no point applying for St George's, for example. But hopefully you'll all do really well in the entry exams, and you won't have to worry about this, but you've got enough time to sort it out and revise for them all, so you'll probably be absolutely fine. So these are other universities. So Cambridge actually doesn't have an admissions test. It's the only one. So if you hate admissions tests, Cambridge might be the one for you. So they accept non-science degrees, but they have A-level requirements. So check Cambridge website if you want to apply there. And then Oxford do a BMAT, which I think is a biomedical assessment. I don't know what it stands for, but it's a bit more
admissions
science.
test.
Oh, thank you. And then Imperial, their course has been suspended for a few years. When I was applying, it was suspended, and it's still suspended for 2022. So I don't really know what's happening with that. Oh, so I've just seen that someone's put in the chat that the slides are loading, not showing up.
It may be your Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, an internet thing.
So we'll give it 30 seconds just for people's slides to catch up.
Okay. What I can do as well is I can post the presentation after. I can see that someone said it's probably a connection. Okay, that's fine. But I can send you the presentation after if you want it. So I've stressed you out about these admissions tests, don't worry, because we've got an event on the 1st of May, and it's being taught by first year medical students, so they haven't done their admissions test that long ago. And it's going to basically run through the 3 different admissions tests. So if you're worried about it, it's probably worth going to this, but don't be worried, you've honestly got plenty of time. It's only March now. You'll be so fine, you've got ages. So if you want to go to this event, then you can just scan the QR code again and get your free ticket, and I'll just leave it on for 2 seconds. Okay.
So while we're having 30 seconds, we'll do a few questions.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do the ones that are in the Teams chat to start with. So do many people prepare for both the Ucat and the GAMSAT? Many people do. A lot of people take multiple entry tests. I don't know what Kate's opinion will be, but my personal opinion is pick one and focus on it. It's much easier to focus on one and do well at one than it is to do many at an average level. And graduate entry medicine is competitive, and you want to look the best you can. So I would focus on one based on looking at the universities and the courses. And then we've got, do Warwick consider the overall Ucat score, or do they require you to meet the cutoff for each section? So you need to meet the cutoffs for every section, but they will quite often, they pick one thing to lower the list of people. So most universities use the entrance exam as the first thing they use to cut a selection of applicants off the list of people they will interview.
I think Warwick as well, they have a cut-off for verbal reasoning, but I think that's the only one they tend to focus on, actually, if I remember correctly. But yeah, you'll be fine if you to do a Ucat. You've got plenty of time if you start sorting it out now. And I would say I've got some key dates later of like when you can apply for the exams and register, but it tends to be the GAMSAT and the Ucat is in the same month. It depends how you apply. So like Abby was saying, that might be stressful, but it depends how you work. I think it is worth looking at the universities that you can actually apply for, and then decide if you want to do the GAMSAT or the Ucat or both.
Okay, so I am aware that there are a flurry of questions in the chat. I am keeping a note of them all, and there are a flurry of questions in the anonymous questions page as well. Some of these questions are answered in the presentation, so we'll move on a little bit and we'll get back to you with the rest of the questions, okay?
Yeah, and also we have all the students at the end, and some of them might have, because I didn't do the GAMSAT, so they might have different experiences as well, so they might be better at answering the question. So we'll come back to those. Okay, so work experience. Work experience is a bit of a different one this year because of COVID. And some universities, when I was having a look, they're being a bit more lenient due to COVID. So some universities require quite a lot of work experience. So Warwick, for example, requires 70 hours of documented hands-on healthcare, and it needs to be hands-on from more than 2 or more experiences. So you can't have 70 hours in one thing. And I think there's a cap of how much can actually just be shadowing. So it's 20 hours, which can just be shadowing experience. So you need to make sure you've got the multiple experiences. It is a bit different this year because of COVID. So what I would advise you to do is go on the website and have a look, because, for example, they are now classing this year specifically for this year it's entry. I think if you're like work on Samaritan's phone line or you volunteer for Samaritans, they're accepting that this year, but that's not usual. Usually they want hands-on care. So make sure you go on the website and read it all through thoroughly to make sure you've got the right work experience. And it's March now, or the work experience hours need to be all before the 15th of October, which is the application deadline. So it's worth sorting it out if you haven't got many hours at the moment. Some universities don't have a set amount of hours. Warwick's probably the most strict one for work experience because they really value people having hands-on care experience. So if you haven't got that many hours, it might be worth applying to another university, because if you haven't got them 70 hours, then you won't be able to get an interview. It's like the Ucat. You definitely need them hours to apply to Warwick at least. Yeah, so I think it's worth checking the website because the requirements have changed a bit because of COVID. But if you're stressing about how to get work experience, if you don't know anyone in the NHS or things like that, we're doing a talk in 2 weeks' time about how we all got our work experience coming from widening participation backgrounds, and there'll be some tips on how to get your work experience. So come to that if you're struggling. And also what I would say is don't just do the work experience because you need to do the work experience. It's really important to take stuff from it, because when you're writing your personal statement and you're doing your interview, it's going to be so helpful. So I would say think about what sort of doctor would you want to treat a family member. So red is the bad ones. You probably wouldn't want them to treat your family member. But think about when you've done your work experience, or however you're getting your hands-on healthcare hours, make sure you reflect on the experience and how you used or observed any of these values, because that will be so helpful in the interview. And also, don't be, if something's not went brilliantly, or you felt like you didn't communicate that great or anything like that, that's okay too. It takes in medicine, you need to reflect on the bad experiences that you have and how you can improve. So universities will like that as well. If you can reflect on something and how it wasn't too great, and how you think it would be better, and what would you change, what have you learned from it, that's all going to be so useful. So when you do your work experience, make sure you write everything down, and you'll be fine for interviews if you do that. Okay, so just a little shout out to Sheffield, because they have a course which is only for widening participation students, and these are the requirements. You have to meet 2 or more, and it's a bit of a list, but they have the specific A-level degree requirements, so you can't just get in if you're widening participation. You need to meet, and they've got the very specific degree requirement with the amount of anatomy in, so it's worth having a look at Sheffield if you are from a widening participation background. Okay, so from this, I would say go and do some research to find out which university is the best fit for you based on your qualifications and based on your experience. And then you can start to plan, what admissions test you're going to do. I think if you follow them 3 things, you've got a really good chance of getting an interview, and then from there you can do your interview prep. But I think the main hurdle is getting an interview, and so make sure you follow all these steps and give yourself plenty of time as well. And then also just a shout out to this website, MedMentor. It's a really good website, and they have lots of free resources to help you apply to medicine. So I definitely recommend going to MedMentor as well, if you're stuck or just want some advice. Just a quick shout out to Warwick. So we are the largest graduate course in the UK, and we're graduate only. So we don't have any undergraduates on our course. It's designed specifically for graduates who already have a degree. So at other universities, I know they merge. I think when you might do the first year, but you like taught with the undergrads as well. But Warwick is specifically graduate, which I think is really good. You get early clinical experience, not so much this year because of COVID, but usually you do. We are taught by case-based learning. I know some other universities do PBL, problem-based learning, but case-based learning is basically we're given a patient's case at the start of the week. It's not real, it's a fictional patient, and it's basically you try and walk through the case and diagnose the patient and think about why stuff's happened to them, how you would treat them, and it's really good way to consolidate all your learning for that week. So it will all be stuff about what you've recently learned, so it's really good. Here we do prosection, not dissection. So if you're thinking what's that, it's about anatomy. So we use plastinates, which are like it's human tissue, but it's been dissected already by an anatomist. So they're so good at Warwick, and you can see exactly what you're looking for. And it just makes, I personally think it makes learning a lot easier. But yeah, if you want to do dissection, Warwick's probably not the university for you, but I think prosection's really good. You need a 2-1 honours degree or any overseas equivalent in any subject. So like I was saying, you can do history, you can do maths, and you can have never studied science in your life, and you can still come to Warwick and train to be a doctor. And the non-science students actually tend to do really, really well at Warwick, so don't let that put you off. You'll be absolutely fine. We do the Ucat, like I already said, and we do an MMI, which is a multiple mini interview. So that's quite stressful. So it's like six 6-minute stations, but just take it easy and try not to be stressed about it. And just make sure you've reflected on your work experience before you go in there. And yeah, so Warwick has that quite high work experience requirement, the 70 hours, and they've changed the dates because it used to be just the past 2 years, but now it's the past 4 years, I believe. So they're being a bit more lenient because of COVID, but check the website. And a little disclaimer, we're not Warwick WHAM aren't admissions. So if you've got any specific questions about, would this be eligible, it's best to email them directly, because we have no influence over that, and all this information is off their website. It's not from us. So some key dates. So the deadline is 15th of October, and it is like every year. It's always 15th of October. And you need to do your work experience before that date. You need everything sorted before that date, and I wouldn't leave it too late because you need to get a UCAS reference. So you need to make sure that's all sorted before the 15th of October, else your offer won't, your application can't be sent off. And then with Warwick, I think it's about a week later, you have to submit work experience references. So make sure you've got all them. Make sure when you do work experience, you make sure you get some proof that you've done it, so they can see it and just say it's okay, basically. The UCAT testing window is from the 26th of July to the 29th of September. So it is quite long. Some people prefer to do it early and get it out of the way. Some people do it late. Booking opens on the 28th of June and it closes on the 28th of September, but do not leave it till the 28th of September to book your test, because there might not even be any dates. The dates go quick, especially the weekend dates. So if you want a weekend date, make sure you're booking early. Did you want to say something, Abby?
Yeah. I was just going to also remind people that the Ucat and the BMAT are also entry tests that people taking undergraduate medicine apply for. So if you live in an area that has a lot of schools, for example, a lot of the UK CAT, especially, booking windows will go very quickly in your specific area. So it is sometimes worth, if you have the ability to travel somewhere, looking a slightly wider radius than you would think of, to make sure you can get a good date.
Yeah, very true. And then the BMAT, so that's just Oxford, that one is, because Imperial's suspended at the moment, and they're the September and November. I think one date, I can't remember it's September or November, but for undergrad med, you can't do one of the dates, but for graduate med, you can do both September and November. And then the GAMSAT, so the March window is already gone, but if you're planning to apply in a couple of years, then there's a March window, and registration opens early October, and it closes February the 1st. So you need to make sure you're booking on. And then the upcoming one is the 3rd to 16th of September, and the registration opens in mid-May and it closes on the 20th of July. So if you want to do the GAMSAT, make sure that's all planned. And like I was saying earlier, the UCAT and the GAMSAT do overlap in dates. So if you're going to do both, just plan your time very wisely. Okay. Just a quick shout out that WHAM, we have a buddy scheme. And it's an 8-week buddy scheme, and basically you're paired with a current graduate entry medical student at Warwick from a similar background, so they can help you out and give you one-to-one support and advice. So if you're interested in that, you can scan the QR code and it will take you to a booking link, and you can pop your details in and someone will come back to you. That hasn't actually started yet. It's starting in the next few weeks or so. Is it the next few weeks?
Yeah, so the application window is open for our first 8 weeks, and that closes I think it's a few days after the last event in this cycle of our little schedule of events. The link will also be in the feedback form, and it's also on our social media if you want to come back to it at a later date.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you're not sure whether to apply, so now we're going to hear from some current Warwick Med students. So I'll just say, from my experience, what I was worried about applying for was I felt like, oh, I've already done a 3-year degree. Do I really want to do another degree? It's 4 years. I'll be graduating when I'm 26. I'll have no money until I'm 26. But as soon as I got to Warwick, I felt like, yeah, it was completely the right thing to do. Don't let that age thing put you off, because you're going to have so many years to practice as a doctor, and in the if you weigh up how many years you're going to be working, it's completely worth it. So if that's also your concern, then don't worry about that. So now we're going to hear from some other medical students. If you want to pop your cameras on.
Yeah, I'm here. I don't know if you can see my camera.
Oh yeah, I can see you now. You spoke.
Yeah,
so
I think all of us have switched on now.
Oh, okay, bro. So, Alice, do you mind starting if you've got any tips?
Yeah, sure. So, hi everyone. My name's Alice. So I'm in first year as well. I am one of the non-science people, so I did history for my degree. I didn't do any science A levels. And I haven't done any science since I was in GCSE, which was a very long time ago now. So I am one of the older students as well. Well, I think I'm one of the older students, so I'm 28, so I just started. So I'm in those kind of categories of someone a bit kind of, you know, not a natural kind of thing for me to think about doing medicine at this stage. So when I first sort of looked into applying, it seemed really, really daunting. When I sort of looked at Warwick's requirements, and when I realised I could actually apply, I kept sort of looking at it thinking, you know, what's the catch? I just kept thinking, you know, like, okay, I don't have any science A levels, I don't have this, I don't have that, but I can still just apply for medicine and be considered with everyone else who has PhDs in neuroscience and degrees in biochemistry and this, that and the other. So yeah, my advice would be just if you're the right fit for medicine, then there's really nothing to stand in your way from applying. You don't need to be intimidated by the statistics, by the competition and all that kind of thing. Just kind of focus on what you need to do, focus on your admissions tests, and focus on getting your work experience if you need it for the university you're applying to, and don't doubt your sort of choice to go into medicine just because you're not sort of the typical applicant, is what I would say. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that was great. So if you have any questions for Alice specifically, we'll just keep it in your head or put it on the form or put it in the chat, and we'll come back to it in a minute. Who wants to go next?
I don't mind going next.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm Luke. I did a biology degree at Warwick way back in 2016, and then I worked in a medical lab for a bit. I'd never actually considered doing medicine as an undergrad. It was only when I was actually working in a hospital and talking with doctors all the time that I started thinking, yeah, maybe I would like a role with like patient contact. I like my work experience. I took the admission tests, and now I'm here. So I was definitely intimidated by the whole competitiveness aspect of it. Still not convinced they didn't make a mistake by picking me, but I'm here now. They're stuck with me. So there's that. I did both the GAMSAT and the Ucat. So if you have any questions about the GAMSAT, I'll be happy to answer about them. Yep.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Luke. Zane, do you mind going next? Oh.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'll go next. So just a bit about me. My name's Zane. My background's in pharmacy. So I studied for 4 years, and then I took a year out where I was working as a training pre-reg pharmacist at a hospital in Birmingham. And like Luke, actually, it was after working with doctors for a little while where I kind of realised, oh, actually, this is something more that I'd like to do this a bit more than what I'm currently doing. Again, just a bit of random bits of advice about what I kind of found really insightful when I was applying. One thing that Kate said that I really want to emphasize is just be really strategic about where you apply in terms of relative to your assessment exams. So whether it's UKCAT or BMAT, you don't want to be have a nasty surprise afterwards where you realize, oh, actually, that's part of the entry requirements and you haven't got the prerequisites to get in. The other thing is that I just wanted to talk about as well in terms of work experience. Obviously, Warwick are very, very heavy on the work experience, and it's great to kind of, if you get to see cardiothoracic surgery, which I doubt you currently will anyway, but let's just say you've got that, or I don't know, you spent weeks and weeks in an oncology ward. It's more about like the reflections that you and learn, the experiences and what you learn from that, the lessons, and how you can see how a team might work dynamically, or what the state of the current NHS is, and that's more valuable to the university than having amazing examples that nobody else can think of. I understand the other thing was I just wanted to share as well was that I understand that Warwick doesn't really place a huge emphasis on personal statements. I'm not sure what score the university puts on it, other universities, but I still kind of wrote mine, even though I've really only wanted to go to Warwick, and I felt it was a useful exercise just to reflect as well, which kind of helped me prep for interviews. And here and there, when I lose motivation a little bit, I go back and read my personal statement to make me feel a bit better. It hasn't worked so far, but yeah, that's my bit of advice for now.
Thanks, Zane. Any questions for Zane? You can ask at the end. Mahmood?
Hi guys, my name is Mahmoud. So I graduated in chemistry actually. So technically it doesn't count like as a biological science. So I graduated in chemistry from University of Warwick. So I just carried on here. And yeah, like any tips or advice I'd give you is if this is something you want to do, just do it. Don't let other people kind of hold you back and things like that. So if that's what your goal is, do it, and reach out to people that can help you as well. I'd also recommend helping others, and also help as much as you can from people that have got experience. So I also did the UKCAT and the GAMSAT. So again, like Luke, if you have any questions about the GAMSAT, I can answer some. And for example, if you have any questions about if you specifically come from like a low income background, things like that, and you have any questions as well, I'll be happy to help with that as well.
Okay, amazing. And Megan?
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Megan. So I graduated last year in biology from Bristol, and then I came straight into medicine at Warwick. So I also did the Ucat and the GAMSAT. So if you guys have any questions about that, then do let me know. I think I just want to emphasize what the other guys have said in terms of really thinking about where you want to apply and definitely play to your strengths. I think what I did was just make a list of everywhere that I was eligible to apply, and then kind of work it in terms of what admissions test I did better in, or sort of what interview style, MMI versus panel, that I thought that I would excel at more than the other one. And yeah, just really think about where you apply, and you want to maximize your chances of getting an interview, basically. So yeah, so that's me. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Okay, amazing. Abby, do you have anything to say, or?
No, not really. Should we go ahead and there's an awful lot of questions.
Okay.
So I think
let's go with the questions.
Yeah. So the first one that I've got is funding much different for a non-GEM degree? Would you like me to answer this one? Okay. So graduate entry medicine, you can get funding for student finance if you apply for a graduate entry medicine course. If you apply for an undergraduate medicine course as a graduate, you don't receive any student finance funding, so you have to self-fund the majority of your degree. GEM, you get 2/3 of your fees funded by student finance, and from your second year onwards, the rest of that is funded by the NHS. It's only that first year that there's it's about £3,500 that has to be located to fund your first year. It's absolutely doable. Some people hear that number and graduate medicine goes straight out the window for people's options. We currently have a list which is growing daily of about 15 bursaries that are available, and Warwick also have a hardship fund that is available for people that can go towards supporting you finding that amount of money, and they don't ask for it on day one, and they don't ask for it in full either, so don't think that you've got to have it ready and raring to go on day one, because that's not the case. If you've got any more questions about financing, we are running an event next week which will detail how applying for financing works, working during uni and all of that kind of thing. So the next question was, did you say we can only do the Ucat once in the year? Would anyone like to answer that one? Or would you like me to do that one?
You can do that one if you want.
Okay. Yes, you can only take the Ucat once a year, which is why some people make the decision to do both the Ucat and the GAMSAT, because the GAMSAT has 2 application windows, where the Ucat only has 1. So yes, you do have to wait until the next cycle of applications to take the test again. Okay. Rachel has asked, if you don't plan to take a university course before applying to medicine, what kind of grades for A-level would you suggest? Anyone, or would you like me to?
Is this for undergrad medicine? So mostly they are straight A's. So yeah, straight A's in chemistry and biology usually. So yeah, quite tough.
Yeah. If in doubt, email an admissions department. They're always happy to get you emails. They do sometimes just take a little while to get back to you, but they always will. Somebody has. Oh, go on.
I was just going to say, I know someone said about the Ucat score once a year, and I just want to emphasise that when I first did the Ucat, mine was not good, and because I didn't really take it seriously, and it's the worst feeling ever because you can't do anything for the next year. So that's why I'm saying, honestly, prep for it so you don't have it, because it's a horrible feeling when it goes wrong and you think, right, I've got to wait another year. So yeah.
Somebody has asked, if you don't mind, are any of you willing to share your Ucat score? I'm happy to go first if you'd like. So I'm a few years older than this lot. So I took my Ucat probably, must be almost 3.5 years ago now. And I got 2,650, I believe. So I was very much on the edge of what it is now. So yeah. Anyone else willing to share their Ucat score for people?
I got, second time I got 2,760. The year before I got something in the 2,500s, and I can apply to anywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. I did all right. I got 2,900, but I will say the only reason I scored reasonably well is because I spent a really long time practicing. So that's what I would recommend. UKCAT is, well, it's Ucat now. It's a weird test, and the only way to really just get through it is just to practice and practice all the time. So that's my advice.
I'd be happy to share as well. So I applied twice. The first time around I got 3,150, which I was very happy with, and then I got rejected from everywhere after an interview. And then the second time around I got 3,310. So
that's amazing.
Yeah, well done.
Again, yeah, it's well, once you know what the actual test is going to be like, and I would recommend like doing practice tests and practice questions. It's pretty easy to okay, not pretty easy. It's mostly about not panicking and managing your time.
That's a really good score, Luke.
Yeah, well done.
I got 2,830. And just like Luke said, I think it's really important just to know what the test is going to consist of. So I think there are loads of resources online that you can use to have practice questions and things like that. But one thing in terms of preparation for the Ucat is make sure you time yourself, because I found that the hardest thing about the test was the sort of how quickly it was going. I didn't find the questions necessarily so difficult. It was just the fact that you had to answer them so quickly, just to get through them all. So yeah, make sure you time yourself.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, it's GCSE level content. If you're applying for this graduate course, you will be able to do the questions. It's just the fact that it's also time limited.
Yeah, I agree. And sorry, in terms of the people asking how long to spend revising for it, I think you'll hear lots of different things from different people. Personally, I did the GAMSAT as well, so I focused loads on the GAMSAT. But I spent maybe like a month looking over it, and then 2.5 weeks of really hardcore, like all day, every day revising for the Ucat. So that was just my personal experience.
Yeah, I was working full time at the time. So basically what I did was I got a book of like practice Ucat questions, and in my lunch break, I basically just got it out and went through those. So that was about, yeah, I'd say similar to Megan. It was like 4 weeks of that, and then I took 2 weeks off work, and then it was just like solid questions all day.
Yeah, I was very short, so I made a spontaneous decision to apply for medicine that year and do the Ucat, and I got one of the last possible dates, very last minute, very far away from home, and I think I did 2 weeks of sporadic Ucat preparation while revising for my finals. So yeah, I think it depends on how long you've got available in your everyday life, but also kind of how motivated you are to do it. Definitely. So yeah, shall we move? We'll move on because the questions are growing by the minute. So lots of people have said, how long do you take?
Can I just add really quickly about if you're applying? So I actually applied with I still have dyslexia now, but they do actually afford some extra time for you if you have that, but you do need to make sure you can prove that. So you need it's like a psychological assessment and report. But if that is something you have, then you can apply and you can get some extra time in the exam.
Yeah, I was just also going to add there's also a bursary for the Ucat as well. So if you come from a low income background, you can apply for them to cover the costs for you. So, yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Let me scroll to the next set of questions. So with regards to work experience, there's a lot of work experience questions coming up. What does it mean? So I'll just give a general summary, and then some of our guys can maybe share what they did for work experience. So we'll go with Warwick specifically. Warwick asks for 70 hours, 20 of which can be shadowing. The rest must be patient facing. So you must be doing something, whether that's caring or anything else. Documentation wise, usually it's a reference from whoever you did your experience with. They usually ask for as well some way of figuring out the hours you have done. So usually someone will say, I did a role 5 hours a week for this long, and then they can figure out that you've done the criteria. Someone has asked if they're a registered nurse. That does count as work experience, yes.
The difficult thing is that it's limited to 50 hours. So, and that's experiences. So I think you could count different experiences. So it might be worth, if you're a nurse and you've just done it, just got that experience in that ward, maybe try and shadow in a different ward or something like that, just to get them extra hours, which don't, because it is limited to those 50 hours per experience.
Yeah, and just to clarify, even if you are working in the NHS, the role does have to be patient-facing to count. So I worked in a medical lab, which wasn't a patient-facing role. Even though I did that for 2 years, that didn't count for anything. I had to completely get 70 hours of experience elsewhere.
Okay. Any of our other first-year medical students like to share some advice or examples of what they've done for work experience?
Yeah, I just want to...
you go, Zane.
Thanks. It's like CVL all over again. I was just wanted to share that the fact that for pharmacists it's a little bit different this year. So when we applied, it was pretty much the same, but they've added a clarification. So if anybody has a background in pharmacy, I think community pharmacy experience doesn't count as hands-on experience anymore. So it would only be able to be 20 the hours that you have. So yeah, so anybody who is applying for the pharmacy needs to bear that in mind, because it's a bit different this year.
And I was just going to add a bit about how I went about getting my work experience. So I wasn't in sort of any healthcare setting beforehand. And actually I was quite lucky in terms of a health board near me was running sort of these work experience schemes, and they were really tailored to people who were still in sixth form. But I contacted them and they managed to get me in, so that was really helpful. So I would just advise looking locally in terms of the sort of the health boards that are around you, because often the people really want to help and they're really nice, so whatever they do they'll probably do it for you. So that's just something to check out.
So just to expand on Megan's point, most of the CCGs do actually do it. Again, if you go on the websites, they do, a lot of them say 16 to 18-year-olds for their work experience. Send them an email. A lot of they're always happy to help, and actually as a graduate your timetable is often a lot more flexible than these 16 to 18-year-olds, so they do find that they can schedule you in, and they'll often schedule you in for a time when the 16 to 8-year-olds aren't in the hospital too, so sometimes you do get a lot more out of the experience. Has anyone
just going to add something? Oh, sorry.
No, I was literally going to say, anyone else?
Yeah, I was just going to say my advice with work experience is to not necessarily focus on looking at it really narrowly in terms of wanting to find experience with doctors. That can obviously be really exciting for some of you, but doctors are quite hard to contact. It can be really intimidating trying to contact them, you can feel a bit like, you can get a bit of imposter syndrome trying to get in touch with a consultant asking to come and shadow. So my advice would be just, honestly, there are so many different people that you can work with. So don't underestimate any of your kind of healthcare professions. So I got the bulk of my experience working as a healthcare assistant full time, but when I needed the extra hours, I did shadowing with other people within the hospital I worked in. So I did shadowing with the psychology department, for example, and there's loads of other teams that you could shadow. They would all count. So if you worked with nursing or dietitians or physio, all those types of things, as long as they're patient facing, do count. So don't sort of necessarily think you have to go work with a consultant to get the hours.
Also, I think just to stress, like the hours themselves can be spread out across quite a long period of time. So the bulk of my hours for Warwick was that I worked as a mealtime assistant, and because I was working full time at the time, I could basically volunteer for one mealtime once a day, once a week. Sorry, yeah, one mealtime a week. So basically 2 hours a week, but I did that over a period of like 6 months. So it all added up, and I think if anything, they sort of appreciated that I'd been able to commit to this for quite a long time, as opposed to just banging out shadowing for a week.
And the long-term commitments are great for the personal statements as well.
Sorry, just one more thing to add. So I didn't necessarily have any contacts in terms of anyone in healthcare to be able to sort of arrange work experience with. But one thing that I did utilise was my previous uni had a sort of alumni network that you could sort of put you in touch with people who had maybe done a nursing degree or a medicine degree or whatever your previous uni. So that's something to check out to see if they have that. And often you can just have a conversation with someone about any advice they have if they're unable to sort of offer anything more. But yeah, that's something to look out for.
So I'm aware that lots of people have many questions about work experience. We are running an event in a few weeks that is literally just about work experience, how to get it, really good tips for getting in, how to kind of find it, but in unconventional ways. I've got very unconventional work experience, and it's all about what you take out of the work experience and how you show what you have learnt from the work experience, just as much as I shadowed a doctor for 50 hours. So I will answer some more of the work experience questions, but I'm watching the numbers of questions go up and up and up, and I'm conscious of keeping everybody too late. So we'll answer as many as possible, but please do think about coming to that event. It's got some really good tips and advice in that one too.
I've seen a few questions directed specifically to Alice about coming from a non-science background, and about how did you find the jump, as well as how did you find like prepping for entry exams?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So when it came to entrance exams, I only applied to Warwick. That was my only choice that I wanted to apply to. That was for various kind of reasons, but that's just kind of where my lifestyle was kind of heading at the time. And I only took Ucat, obviously, for that reason. And I was way too intimidated by GAMSAT to try that, because like I say, I think that one's a lot more academic, isn't it? So there's a lot more science and stuff on that one, which I didn't really feel prepared for. Prepared for the test, my main advice is with that is it's not an academic test. The Ucat, it's not got science and stuff on there. It's got maths, and it's got various weird shapes to look at, which is really fun. And it's like they said before, it's GCSE level. The questions are not very difficult. It's just the timing is insane. So don't worry about it. If you're non-science, don't worry like, oh, I need to go and pick up like a A-level biology textbook or something to study for Ucat, because you don't. It's kind of a bit like a IQ test. It's a strange one, but yeah, the key with it is just practice over and over again. I used Medify, which is a website which I'm sure lots of other people used or are using, which was really, really helpful. So practicing the questions to time, setting time aside for that, and not underestimating the test, they're the kind of main tips for that. But when it came to jumping from a sort of course, sort of like a humanities course. I mean, to be honest with myself, I didn't really jump because, you know, I graduated in 2016 from history, so it's quite a long time ago now. So I did various things in that time, and now my advice with that is, this course is hard for everyone. Don't think that it's hard for you just because you're non-science. That's not the case. Everybody struggles at different times with different things. They have a group here called the non-science teaching group. I didn't use it for too long. I used it for a few weeks, and after that I didn't really feel the need. So they do peer teaching for students with no science background. And honestly, I think for me the most important thing was just to not stress about every small thing that I wasn't getting. So in the first few weeks, it would be I would just, with each subject, I'd go, okay, I've grasped that sort of 40%, I'll move on to the next thing. I've grasped that thing for 40%. Don't think to yourself, oh my God, I have to understand absolutely everything straight away. There's so many opportunities throughout the course where we revisit things over and over again. So as long as you just keep that sort of breadth in mind, honestly, I don't feel at any kind of disadvantage next to the science students. Everybody's finding it tough in their own way. So and the whole first year of this course in particular, I know some of you are obviously applying for other unis, but in this course in particular, the whole first year of this course is designed to get everybody up to the same standard. And it's not, the sciencey stuff is not overly complicated. It's just kind of, you just got to get it all done in the first year. So yeah, I hope that helps.
So somebody has asked about working during uni. Anyone got an answer for that?
Yeah, personally, I do work. I've been working since September, so I've been working throughout the whole course. I would say personally that because it's online, because of COVID, it's a little bit more manageable because you have a bit more flexibility in your timetable. Would I advise it? I'd say you definitely have to assess your own situation, and if you need to work. For example, I needed to work, so it wasn't really something that, it's not like I'm doing it because I want to, it's just because I have to. So I would say definitely see what's manageable for you, like see how many hours per week that is manageable for you, and definitely try to have like a bit of a structure and a routine to stay organized and keep on top of it. But I would say it's definitely manageable, but be aware of how much you can manage per week, and if you can, maybe try to save up some money in the summer as well, because that makes it a lot more easier.
Mahmood, could you also have you seen the question in the chat directed to you?
Yeah, I did.
Mind answering that one?
Yeah, so I've looked at that one. So if that person can message me, because so I can understand it a bit more better. But any advice about finances? So there's a website. It's called like the scholarships website. So you can definitely look into that, and it has like all the bursaries and scholarships in the UK. So not even just for Warwick. So if you like put medicine, it will show you all the different scholarships that are available. I didn't get it, but you can do that. I think also what you can do as well, there is a Warwick bursary that wasn't open for medics from this year and the year before, but it's going to be open for people next year, so you can look into that as well. And if there's anything a bit more like personal as well, you can message me and I'll try to answer a bit more, directed to your question.
Yeah. So I'm just going to jump in a little bit. I'm aware I'm doing that a lot. So regarding this question directed at Mahmood, we have a list of the most up-to-date and relevant ones that are specifically for grad med, which we will put online next week after our event if you can't make that one. Please remember that student finance and NHS bursary both offer childcare grants, and they're all means tested. So if you come from low income backgrounds and minorities, they are all taken into account when funding is given. We campaigned very hard last year to get the medics into the Warwick Hardship bursary, and most unis run both a bursary and a grant scheme, and accommodation support, you've just got to be willing to ask for it, and usually that's the hardest step. So please don't be afraid to ask, can you help me? You know, how, you know, do you know of anything I can access, etc. Because if you ask, you'll get, you really will. And then I'm just going to jump in on the working during uni, because I obviously did first year pre-COVID. I worked during my first year, and I work now during my placement. I actually have 3 jobs, so I work a lot. It's doable. It takes a lot of effort, and you really have to, as Mahmood said, you have to be aware of your timings. So I work a lot during certain times of the year, and then when exams are coming up, I try not to work unless I really, really have to. And I think that's really important to remember, that it is doable, but you have to really think about when you're working and what you're working. I would also suggest, if you can find a job that is relevant to medicine, that's always a very good idea. So bank HCAing is always a well recommended job, because you're gaining clinical and patient contact, you know, and experience throughout your degree then, and that's extra and that's helpful for you, and will make, you know, kind of be beneficial to your degree, as well as helping you fund medicine. So next question. Lots of people are asking Alice to define how long she spent.
Yeah, I have just posted something in the chat to explain.
Perfect, thank you. Someone has also asked about being an international student. Every university will say on their website what their international kind of guidelines are. If they're unclear, send them an email, because they'll really be able to help you with, in terms of kind of what documents you need to provide, whether they need to be translated, and kind of, so all of that will be that'll be where you need to go for those. Okay, and then so then we've got some anonymous ones. So we've mentioned about non-science for the people asking about supporting people from a humanities background. That's Warwick specific. Another Warwick specific thing we do is we match you all up with students that are kind of similar to you, that have completed first year, to kind of guide you. So that someone's asking for advice about how to spend their year out. Anyone got any tips?
I'd say it depends how much work experience you've got. If you've got enough work experience, take it a bit slowly, because it's gonna hums on you like a ton of bricks. But what I would say is it's good to have some money stored up. If you have a year out, so I had a year out and I got some money stored up, and it's made it a lot easier because I don't have to stress about that. It takes the stress out of my life. So yeah, so maybe work, but you definitely don't revise, because you do not need to use any brain power on revising, because you're going to be revising for the next 4 years and the rest of your life. So I'd have a break from education if I was you.
Someone else also asked about working, like a good job to have during your gap year. I would suggest, you know, HCAing is always the one everyone suggests to people. But you know, working in care homes, anything that's patient facing, if you're, you know, willing to do clinical before you've started med school, will not only help your applications, but will help you when you're at med school with, you know, learning to be a doctor. So we've got some questions about work experience and virtual work experience during a pandemic. Anyone want to answer that, or would you like me to? you know, done a few other things as well that haven't just shown they've focused in one specific area. So please consider that as well. But we do have a very good talk about work experience. Mm-hmm. I know everyone's quite worried about it.
I'll just add on to that. If you can't get HCA work, because I couldn't get HCA work, I worked in a nursing home as a support worker, and that counts, and it's a bit easier to come by. Like, as a support worker, there's lots of jobs for support workers. So I think if you're struggling for HCA, a support worker is fine as well. And I did like a 0 hours job, so I could do it along as and when I wanted to. So don't think that you need to be working 40-hour weeks in awards, because you don't. There's ways around it.
Yeah, and Emily's made a very good point in the chat about please make sure no matter what you do, you need to have a specific point of contact, because they do get in touch with them, and they do like to have a specific point of contact rather than a general email, because it shows that you've had that connection with somebody and that person is aware that they're applying to, you know, that you're applying and that they're going to know you. So please just keep that in mind. Cool. That is most of the questions, Kate. We've summarised quite a lot of them.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on that if any questions specifically about diversity, if you come from a widening participation background, we're actually doing a panel. We're doing a specific BME panel, and that's in partnership with the Med School BME Society, and there'll only be BME people there as well, so it will be a safe space if you want to go to that. And then there's also a panel where there's more people speaking from all different widening participation backgrounds, so we'll advertise that. So if there's anything specifically that you want to ask about, that is probably worth coming to the panel.
So on that note, I'm going to put the feedback form for tonight's event in the chat. If you've got questions and you don't want to write an email, feel free to put the question in the feedback form, and we will do our best to pass on, you know, the questions and get back to you if we can. Okay.
Can I just add something quickly? Sorry, just to the people in the chat who've been asking me about why I decided to do medicine after doing a humanities degree. I'm penning together a bit of a message for you in the chat, so check in there. I'm writing it now, and I'm more than happy to have questions sent to me by any of you guys if you'd like any more advice on that front. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, well, thanks all for coming. Thanks for staying as well, and thanks for everyone, all the first year med students who have helped. It's been really useful. If you've got any questions, like Abby said, you can contact us on Instagram, you can contact us on Facebook or on email.